Julian, 29 years old and at first glance a perfect example of the modern man, stood at the edge of an elegant rooftop party in Berlin. He was handsome, wore a tailored suit, and had a successful career as an architect. He had everything society considered attractive. And yet, as he watched other men effortlessly laugh and flirt, he felt like a ghost in his own life. His gaze fell on Sarah, a stunning woman with a lively laugh whose radiance lit up the entire room. Julian, determined to do things differently this time, approached her. He tried a witty remark, but his words sounded hollow, his smile stiff. The moment he realized he was just talking and not truly building a connection, he felt her interest wane. A polite smile, a hasty glance at her phone, and she was gone, back in the center of the action, while he stood alone at the edge again. The familiar wave of frustration and confusion washed over him. It wasn't the first time. He had read countless books and watched dozens of videos, but nothing seemed to work. He was tired of feeling invisible, missing the unspoken rules of a game everyone else seemed to understand. This was his reality. He was a man with potential, but without impact. Julian's frustration about the party went deeper than just a failed encounter. It was a reflection of a pattern that ran through his entire life. He hadn't just failed in love. He noticed that his inability to exude a deeper magnetic presence also affected his professional world. He had recently lost an important promotion. Although he was the most capable architect for the project, the job was given to a colleague named Ben. Ben was not professionally superior, but he had an unshakable calm and effortless charisma that captivated everyone. Clients immediately trusted him, and colleagues sought his proximity. Julian tried to copy Ben's behavior, cracking loud jokes and adopting a confident posture, but it felt forced and unnatural. He saw only confusion in the eyes of the people around him when he tried. He was caught in a vicious circle. The more he tried to do the right things, the more he felt like an imposter. The advice from countless self-help books on attraction seemed like empty tricks. He was tired of constantly analyzing himself, calculating every smile and gesture. Julian stood on the brink of despair. His energy was exhausted, his efforts were in vain, and he knew that he hadn't yet understood the fundamental cause of his problem. It wasn't what he did, but who he was. One evening after the depressing defeat, Julian sat alone in a small, almost forgotten park. He scrolled idly through his phone, looking for another meaningless piece of advice, when an older man named Klaus sat down on the bench next to him. Klaus exuded a deep calm. His presence was so peaceful that Julian felt his own inner storm quiet down. Without being pushy, Klaus spoke to him. "Sometimes," he said with a gentle voice, "we lose ourselves trying to control the world around us, only to realize that the only thing we truly own is our own mind." Julian, surprised by the unexpected insight, told him of his frustration, of the endless effort to earn the attraction of others. Klaus smiled and explained to him the principle of the dichotomy of control, a core idea of Stoicism. There are things we can control: our thoughts, our judgments, our actions, and things we cannot control: the opinions of others, good or bad luck, the reactions of other people. He continued, "True attraction doesn't come from trying to impress others. It comes from within, from the ability to master oneself and be at peace with oneself. A man who controls his emotions and does not see himself as a victim is magnetic because he is not dependent on external validation." For the first time, Julian heard not empty advice but a truth that touched his soul. Klaus's words were not tricks, but a path to becoming an unshakable man. Julian's life from then on was determined by a single, powerful thought: focus on what you can control. He cast aside all his old tricks and strategies and began to concentrate solely on his own character, his work, and his reactions. When he was at a party, he no longer thought about what he had to say to please, but about how he could lead a meaningful and authentic interaction. In the office, he stopped worrying about the opinions of his colleagues and focused entirely on doing his best. He also began to practice negative visualization, imagining what might happen if he failed. This took away his fear of failure, as he had already accepted it internally. His new serenity was subtle, but it changed his aura. He became calmer, his posture straighter, and his gaze clearer. His first small victory came one Monday morning. A new colleague, Anna, entered the tea kitchen. Julian would have frantically tried to make a joke before, but now he simply leaned against the counter, relaxed and at peace with himself. Anna started the conversation. He listened attentively to her, asked honest questions, and laughed authentically. There was no calculation, no tension. The conversation flowed naturally. As Anna left with a genuine smile on her face, Julian felt something he had never felt before. He hadn't tried to impress her, yet a real connection had formed. It was confirmation that the power lay within him and not in the external tricks he had pursued for so long. Julian's first small success with Anna was just the beginning. He continued his path of inner mastery, focusing on his own integrity and serenity. A few weeks later, he attended a similar rooftop party again. He no longer entered the room with the intention of impressing anyone, but simply to enjoy the evening. He spoke to people out of genuine interest, not to get something. It was this new, calm self-assurance that set him apart from everyone else. Suddenly, he noticed Sarah, the woman who had rejected him last time. She was sitting in a group, but kept glancing over at him. Instead of rushing over to her as before, he continued to converse, calmly and unhurriedly. Eventually, it was Sarah who came up to him. She smiled and said, "I don't know what it is, but you look so different tonight. So grounded." Julian didn't explain what had changed. He simply smiled and began a genuine, unforced conversation. He didn't have to pretend. He was simply himself, unshakable in his own skin. And in that moment he realized, true attraction was not the result of tricks or feigned self-confidence. It was the byproduct of a man who had learned to master his emotions, control his judgments, and fully rely on his own worth. Women were not attracted by his search for validation, but by his absence of it. He hadn't learned how to attract women. He had learned how to become a man whose unshakable presence is the true attraction.